Hey plant friend, fall is in the air and it's time for my list of plant task to-dos. On the day that I am filming this, it's so blustery outside and it's threatening to rain. So it's a great reminder that fall is definitely coming. The seasons are changing. Now, it's important to note that our plants don't really experience seasonality quite like we do. We control their environments to such an extent that really things aren't that different for them each season. Some things definitely do change, and we'll talk about those, but it's also just a good reminder every quarter to check in again with your plants and do some of the things that we don't necessarily do as often as we might want to. The first plant task is something that changes every season, and that is lighting. So every season, the light that your plant receives changes. The angle of the light and the duration of the light, both are factors that definitely change season to season. So personally, I am taking a look at my plants and making sure they're getting enough light and not too much light. So some of the plants that are directly in the windows may be getting too much light. As the angle of the light lowers, they're getting a more direct beam of light. And some of the plants that are further away from the windows may not be getting enough light and may need to be moved. So that's plant task number one. Check your lighting. The second plant task is cleanup. The first part of cleanup that I want to remind you to do is dust your plants. If you've watched any of my other seasonal videos, then you will likely know I'm not a big fan of dusting, but the plants really need it. The plant surface needs to be clean of debris for the best chance for photosynthesis. So it is an important task, and if you're not doing it weekly or bi-weekly or monthly, perhaps quarterly is often enough for you. So just a reminder, it just takes a soft cloth and a wipe down of the leaf surface. Of course, the plants with the bigger leaves are easier, but all of them need it done. The second aspect of cleanup would involve cleaning out any dead or dying leaves, or for instance on my parlor palm, I'm going to go in close and down deep and look for dead fronds. I'll show you. So we do have some just down here that are turning yellow or brown and need to be removed. And it's super easy. You literally just pull them right out. So not super crucial, but you don't want any rotting plant material on the soil surface because that just is an invitation for bugs. So task number two, clean up. Plant task number three is put your plants to bed. Plants that grow from corms or bulbs generally need a period of dormancy. Some of them are on a regular, predictable schedule and some are not. This is an amaryllis bulb. I received this bulb last year in December and it bloomed beautifully. Once the bloom died back, this lovely foliage emerged and it's been wonderful. So I've just left it on a windowsill and just allowed it to be this spectacular plant that it is. Now though, I have stopped watering it because I want it to bloom again at Christmas time. So I'm kind of forcing dormancy to some extent. I've stopped watering it. As these guys begin to kind of wilt, I'll just cut them back. And that's also a good reminder not to water it. I will start watering again sometime early to mid-November, and then that should produce a bloom in time for Christmas. Now, a plant that is not as predictable in its dormancy would be the oxalis. I have two varieties of oxalis here, and you can see this triangularis is beautiful and full and lush and blooming, so clearly not in dormancy. This one, the iron cross, looks like looks not good. It looks like it's headed toward dormancy. The stems are really leggy, they're dying back, the leaves look not good. So what I'm going to do with this guy is I'm going to cut back all of these stems. I'll stop watering it for a couple of weeks. I'll put it in a dark room, and then in a couple of weeks, 2, 3, maybe 4 weeks, I'm gonna start to see new growth happen. And when that occurs, I'll start watering again and it'll be ready to be full and lovely again. So task number 3, put your plants to bed. Fall plant task number 4 is rebalance. So like I said at the beginning, plants don't necessarily respond seasonally as much as we think they do. But that being said, summer does tend to be a time of active growth for most plants, and it's not always even growth. And so this is just a great opportunity to check on your plants and help them to be more aesthetically pleasing to you. Maybe you don't care, then you could just skip this step entirely. I'll show you some examples of what I'm going to do for my plants. So this peperomia, avid grower, wonderful grower year round, but as you can see, it is a little unbalanced. I would rather it be a more rounded, pleasing shape. So all I'm going to do, I'll come in close, is just take off a cutting right here, and you can see in there, I've done it before. I'm just going to take a little cutting right off in there. I'll propagate that, give it away, and then the whole plant will be a little bit more rounded. I may even take a snip right here. Peperomia are amazingly easy to propagate, and so that's a super easy one to rebalance. My skinned abscess has been growing really well, loving this, and he's hanging over in the corner. One of the stems is a lot longer than the others, and again, not a big deal, but I would love to propagate this plant, so I'm just going to take a little snip, probably right here, just below a node, take that leaf off, and then I'll just have a new stem. I can either fill it back in, this plant's pretty full, or grow roots and give a little cutting away. One more big one that I want to show you is this plant here, my Sansevieria. So, yikes. Okay, so I split this plant not too long ago, and since then he has had remarkable growth. I have 4 beautiful long new stems. Some of the older stems though, let me move this so you can see better, are just kind of drooping out, and I like that look. It's not a terrible look, but based on where this plant is, these get run into all the time. So I'm going to cut this stem off and then propagate it. I've already got another stem propagating, growing roots, and this will just be able to add, I'll probably cut this one too, a fuller plant. I can put them all together in one pot. Now, if you recall from an earlier video, these plants take forever to propagate. They will, this stem will grow roots. I mean, there's about an 80% chance, but it just takes a really long time. The beautiful thing is a long ZZ stem looks really pretty in a vase. So you've got something that's somewhat ornamental and beautiful while it's growing roots. And I think when I lifted this plant up, I called it a Sansevieria. It is not, it is a ZZ plant. Zamioculcas zamiofolia. The final plant task I want to talk about today is repotting. Now, I never shy away from repotting a plant no matter what the season is if the plant needs it. But there are some advantages to propagating in the fall, and one of them is that it's just easier to do outside. And where I live, it's still nice enough weather that I can do it outside. It's just a little less messy. So there are some examples here of plants that I'm going to be repotting. This Scindapsus that I already talked about, I recently put him in a slightly bigger pot, and he's already filling it out. So beautiful. That one's going to be absolutely fine until spring or summer next year. Now, this plant, Epipremnum aureum, or pothos, I got from a cutting, I'm gonna say 6 months to a year ago, I don't remember. But I wanted to have a climbing pothos. I have lots of trailing pothos, but I wanted to try this one out as a climber. And I put a guiding stick in here, but you can see he's already way too long for that. So I am going to put him in a bigger pot, slightly bigger. He'll be able to handle that because I can see some little roots coming out the bottom drainage hole, and find a taller stick, something a little sturdier, and then keep strapping him to that stick and hopefully encouraging that growth to go upward. I'm not a huge fan of moss poles. I can talk about that a lot more in another video, just because they're very messy and very hard to keep wet. But I feel like sticks, especially sticks from the yard or something covered in, say, cork, gives the plant something to grab onto, but isn't quite as messy. So stay tuned. I will do this and maybe I'll film it. Another plant that I'm going to repot is this peperomia. Many videos ago, when I did one specifically about peperomia, I took some cuttings. I was showing how to propagate, and I had a lot of leaves left over because you want to remove leaves as you're propagating the stems, remove the lower leaves. And I didn't want to get rid of the leaves, and so I thought I would give it a shot to propagate leaves. Well, lo and behold, it actually worked. I put the leaves in the soil, and then something really cool happens when you do that. These guys are fully rooted, well rooted. These were the original leaves. But then what's happened is little babies have come out of the soil, and it's creating a nice, beautiful, wonderful, full plant. Now, this plant is heavily rooted. Again, I can see roots coming out the bottom, which is a lot to say. So this one little leaf that didn't even have a root and has barely a stem was able to grow roots that come all the way out the bottom. So that's a lot of root growth. So this guy also will be ready to be put into a bigger pot, and I can't wait to see what happens with that. There's one more really important fall plant task, and that is moving your indoor plants that you put outdoors back indoors. But that actually, I think, warrants a video on its own. So I'm gonna shoot that video, and then that'll be the next one. So keep an eye out for that. But as far as fall plant tasks, here are 5 that I think you really should take on. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really appreciate your support in the form of likes and subscribes and sharing and comments. So fun for me to read your comments. So thank you for staying engaged, and thank you for staying a part of this community. It is just absolutely a pleasure for me to put out these weekly videos. So until next time, my planty friends, let's keep growing together a greener world.